Years since that epic night at Highbury, and we've dropped into the Manchester United dressing room here at Old Trafford with two of these central characters from that evening, Roy and... Why are you pointing at him?
It was his fault.
Was it really?
Well, yeah, because he was the threats were against you, weren't they, Nev? So they were making the threats against Nev, obviously from what happened a few months earlier at Old Trafford, and yeah, it just got a little bit messy.
Was it Roy to the rescue?
Well, I wasn't being attacked. I was just being...
No, not attacked.
I was being abused.
Yeah,
they were just sort of trying to intimidate. I mean, we spoke to Patrick since, and yeah, they weren't happy at all with what happened here at Old Trafford when we obviously got in about them. They were, at that time, they were an unbelievable team, and we had to be aggressive against them, and he felt we took it too far.
Isn't it amazing that 20 years on, that moment still resonates? Does that surprise you?
Not really. I think it reflects where the teams were, the characters that we had in the team. I think the importance of the game, remember? Slightly different today, but yeah, it was. Do you know what? Great days. It's great days.
It's great. It's great. It's like folklore now, isn't it? Really? It's like Kevin Keegan's, rant at the end of the game. I think things like that you look back upon, and they're really special moments. And I think you need more of those moments. Obviously, we've had some recently. People like Jose Mourinho and Jurgen Klopp give us those types of incidents as well.
But yeah, but the key was still to get the right result. Whatever goes on in the turn, yeah, which that was the most important thing. So it was no good us having a bit of argy with Arsenal lads and making up. The key was to go up and obviously do the business, which fortunately we did that night.
That night, the first goal, Arsenal scored the first goal. Ashley Cole, who I used to sit next to for England, I'm right back, he's left back, and he's the most placid guy in the world, Ash, screaming in my face. Who did it the other week when, was it Gabriel did it to Hoyland? It was similar to that. And I thought, Jesus, they're like properly gone, you know what I mean? They're really emotional.
Tension,
like
a lot of tension with this fixture when we were playing.
Times have changed, of course, 20 years on. Does this dressing room almost need a little bit of that fire from back then?
But you know, again, I don't know what kind of characters or dynamics are in the United dressing room. We were chatting about earlier. I would like to have 5 minutes in the dressing room with a team and just see what the dynamics are like, who's taking control of it, who's pushing who's challenging each other, what voices are coming out in the dressing room. I'd love to look at the reaction from the senior players. It's difficult to tell, but I would love to have 5 minutes in the dressing room and just see what the dynamics are like in this United dressing room, particularly for a team that's struggling so much.
I thought you meant you wanted 5 minutes to talk to them, to put your message across.
I don't mean to leave in 5 minutes with players just to see what their mindset's like. Are they all quiet? I know people talk about, well, dressing rooms are different to when we played, but surely they can't be that much different. There still must be characters. There still must be aggro, and there still must be temper. The people must be challenging each other. That's what I'm talking about. Listen, I know the game has changed a little bit, but surely there's that still fight in your dressing room, because we talk all the time about what happens from the ownership, managers, team shape, whatever, but sometimes you have to look at players and go, well, what are you going to do about it? There has to come a point where players look at each other going, ultimately, we've got to do something about it. And my disappointment with this United team is not that they're competing in the top or they're mid-table. This team is competing with Everton and West Ham. They're on the same points as them teams who have been struggling themselves. That would be my major frustration with this group of players.
Do you think, Gary, that almost the biggest challenge facing Ruben Amorim in the short and possibly the medium and long term is changing the culture within this dressing room?
Look, Roy's just covered the culture, the character and the personality. I think there is a bigger worry for me in this dressing room. A few years ago, United had a team that had Lukaku and Pogba and Alexis Sanchez, and it had Di Maria, and I thought they were had fantastic talent. They were capable, I think, destroying teams on the day. My worry with this group of players, I look around this dressing room, is they are nowhere near the calibre of players that actually have failed Manchester United in the last 10 years. And I say that sort of with some level of kindness. It's not the most kind thing to say, but I generally look around this dressing room and I think to myself, how this club has ended up in a position whereby it has recruited, as Ruben Amorim called it, I'll quote Ruben Amorim, the worst Manchester United team in history. It's a long way back from that to a point now where you've got the situation whereby they don't look like they're better than any other team that they play. They don't look better organised, they don't look like they've got better character and personality, but more worryingly is the actual quality.
My argument to that, Nev, my argument to this, when we're saying about this group of players, the lack of quality is, so they go to Man City to get a result, they go and get a good result against Liverpool, they go and beat Arsenal a month or two in the FA. So they have their moments where you produce. The last few years they've been a cup team, so they do turn up every now and again. So that's where you question then the kind of honesty of the group. You can't turn up every 4, 5, 6 weeks for Man United and go, and that's why I think it's always an insult to certain teams when you say, oh, you're a cup team. well, you're just up every few weeks for a certain game. And what happens now at the moment, when you're out of the domestic cups, you start looking at the league table, you go, hold on a second, you've been getting away with it with the cup games, but now you start looking at the league table, you go, how bad really is it? So my argument to Nev is going, yeah, I know they're up against it, but why turn up and produce every now and again the odd performance and then are rubbish in some other games? So there's no in between, is there?
So go on then, I'm going to let you sit down there or wherever for like 30 seconds before the game today. Just say,
Bruno's
you can go and see Bruno's seat if you want.
No.
What would you say? What words are you going to find to lift this team before they go out today? Because there must have been times when you did that when you guys were sharing a dressing room.
Again, I think that you have to remind people as well. When people go back to when we played, we had difficult spells. We had months where we'd have tough times. We'd have injuries. There was many times we didn't win a trophy. But you find a spark from somewhere. A young player, a senior player. You need a goal scorer. You need your goalkeeper to save you. And that's why I go back to, for all the issues you think that's going on at the football club at the moment, and it's well documented on and off the pitch. But you got to find something in the dressing room. That's where you got to look at each other and go, let's create something, a bit of spirit, a bit of fight. Even today, let's be hard to beat. Make sure we don't concede at set pieces or whatever. You might get the odd chance, but don't be as bad as they have been in the last few months, particularly at home. Or even today, listen, let's try and get the first goal. They've been so poor defensively and giving up chances.
Yeah, I mean, I came last Sunday just as a fan, walked down to watch against Fulham. And when you see a team that's got Højlund, Xerxes and Eriksen up front, and it had Casemiro and Fernandes in midfield, and it'll be something similar today, Garnacho might come in, you wonder how they actually can win a game against Arsenal. That's my concern. It's how can they actually win a game? You know, the reality of it is they're just not as good as the team that they're playing against, so they're going to have to do it in different ways. Going back to how you started this piece, there were Arsenal teams that were far better than us for a few periods in Arsene Wenger's reign, where we thought we're going to have to do something different to try and win. That's why we ended up going aggressive against them, being compact, playing really, to be fair, on the counter-attack. They're going to have to do something different today to win this game because they're not as good as Arsenal.
Can Manchester United then ask some questions of Arsenal here this afternoon? Well, certainly Arsenal had all the answers and plenty of inspiration when they won here on a famous night in 2002.
There's huge struggles on and off the pitch. Morale, confidence must be pretty low. Arsenal coming to town. Yeah, it's going to be a tough afternoon, but United certainly need a spirit performance. But you'd have to fancy Arsenal.
What should the target be for United with 11 games to go?
Win as many games as they can. It's as simple
it's
as
the
that.
obvious one.
Again, it's been well documented, the problems. There's been no real reaction to the new manager coming in. Results haven't been great. A few injuries. They don't look like they've got many goals in them. Not great at set pieces. They don't look very dynamic. Still not convinced with the goalkeeper. We keep discussing this every time we focus on United. So many problems, but they have to try and get some belief, confidence back into the group. Find something from within the dressing room. We keep talking about what's going on around the club. Find a spirited performance, a little bit of luck, and they might get a result. But again, if Arsenal turn up and they're at their best, you'd have to fancy them.
Gary, if you were the most optimistic Manchester United fan in the room, and I'm not sure that you are, what would you have to cling on to right now?
For this season, or
and the future?
I mean, you'd hang on the hope that maybe the manager needs a pre-season, that he needs more recruitment. You'd think about the fact that he's really struggled since he's come in. You'd maybe think about... I'm struggling at the moment. I have to say, I think what's happened over the last 10 years that the club is coming home to roost right now at this moment in time. The fans are angry. They're going to process today. I think that when you see that Manchester United have gone from the richest football club, well, in the world, to not being able to feed their own staff, that is a massive demise. And what's hitting now on the pitch is hitting off the pitch as well. The debt, the poor recruitment, the lack of ability to find the performance, and now the 15th in the league, which I never thought I'd see Manchester United 15th in the league in March. So there's not a lot to look upon other than the fact that the manager does retain an element of optimism, and you hope that he can be supported and get it right for next season. But this season's a bit of a write-off. I tried to be positive. It's not gone very well. Let's have a look at what it looked like before Ruben Amorim compared to what it has been since his time in charge. Just as a basic look at some statistics, Jamie, their points per game has dropped, their goals per game has gone up, but you can see the goals conceded has also climbed. One thing I suppose is a slight surprise, he did talk about how hard he wanted his teams to work before he came in, but pressures per 90 minutes are down, and so too are the sprints. In what ways do you think he has done well?
Well, it's difficult to say has he done well. Roy said it, it's not a dynamic team, so you can't all of a sudden expect them to turn into incredible athletes that are going to get box to box and start to change that. I think he he will. What I do like about him is his honesty. He's under no illusions. I think there's been other managers that have almost been delusional to a certain extent, when they come out after games when they were popped off the pitch, they couldn't get near anybody, the performance was bad, the score was bad, and they said, you know what, we've actually done all right today. No, you haven't. You were poor. And I think he knows that. He knows this squad isn't good enough. It's going to take a lot of time. I think his honesty is there. Is there any performances or anything really, if you're a Manchester United fan, to clean on and say, yeah, we are going to get better here? Absolutely not right now. But I still think you have to give this manager time. I think it'd be ludicrous to get rid of him now. I think he needs a little bit of time. On the positive, they could still win the Europa League and get Champions League football. And there's not that many good teams in that competition. That is a possibility. Could you see him doing it right now? It's hard to guess with the way that they're playing. But I think he certainly needs more time. That's for sure.
I just grabbed the programme, Jamie, because you made a point that he's actually made again in his programme notes today, Ruben Amorim. He's almost doubled down on this point about needing time and needing patience, but he says we have a clear aim to get back to a world where we're competing at the top end of the Premier League while being honest about where we are today. So he doesn't seem like he's under
Roy
any
and I
kind
did
of
the
illusion.
Ipswich game, and we both said after the game, if they'd gone on a run of winning 6-7 games, it might just papered over so many cracks. At least you know now what you have to do, and the squad is going to take a lot of time. Gary said the recruitment's been so poor for many years now. That has to change. He
said as well this week, Paul, that he wants the time, and he's not sure he'll be afforded the same time that Mikel Arteta has been at Arsenal. Do you think this is a more pressurised job here at Manchester United?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's one of the biggest clubs in the world. It's not the biggest team in the world, but they are still one of the biggest clubs in the world. So, yeah, the pressure here is like no other. It's not, you know, Arsenal's a big club, don't get me wrong, but nothing's like Man United in England, in my opinion. So the pressure is on. I hope he gets time. You know, there's a lot to be done, though. You know, it's not like before where the fair play rules come in now. You can't go and buy Tom, Dick and Harry. Do you know what I mean? You've got to be careful what you do. And I think Man United are in a situation now like the lad they bought, the fullback from Lecce. They're in that market where it's going to be a heads or tails whether they're going to be a good player or not a good player, because it's not the Premier. We don't know until they get to the Premier League. So for me, it's going to take a long time. I think, and I mean a long time. I don't see this. I don't think he'll be here when it's changed, because I think it'll be 5, 6, 7, 8 years' time, I think.
Yeah, we always talk about giving a manager time. You try and say that for most managers who go into any club, but you can't keep losing football matches either. And I could say that for most clubs. If you're losing week in, week out, there'll be doubts in the dressing room. I always try and get in the players' mindset. They'll be looking at the manager and they'll be saying, what are you bringing to the party? And when there's literally been no reaction to him come into the club, well, that's not a good sign either. But the standards have been dropping at the club for a number of years. And have they reached rock bottom? Maybe there's a bit to go yet.
15th right now, Manchester United, 15th in the table.
Instead, yet Amorim doesn't have that luxury as he contemplates life in 14th position in the Premier League. 34 points behind leaders Liverpool. PSR restrictions and Ratcliffe's desire to cut costs means expensive new blood isn't an option without a fairy godmother first wanting to buy existing United players. The best homegrown players Kobbie Mainoo and Alejandro Garnacho may be sacrificed for financial governance rather than have a long career at Old Trafford like their predecessors. Amorim has a far weaker hand to rebuild United than Ferguson did from a similar low starting point. His immediate priority this summer is to try and exact some sort of cull to free up budget to bring in his players. Victor Lindelof, Johnny Evans, Tom Heaton and Christian Eriksen are out of contract, and Hell want Marcus Rashford, Antony, Jadon Sancho and Tyrell Malacia to finish loan spell strongly to create a market. Nearly everyone else at Old Trafford is available at the right price, headed by Rasmus Højlund and Casemiro. The anticipated upheaval requires diplomatic tact from Amorim at a club already reeling over staff redundancies and rising ticket prices. The charming Portuguese declares honesty is the best policy as he seeks radical change. Amorim needs a Sir Alex Ferguson-style rebuild but has been dealt a far weaker hand. Everybody understands that in football sometimes you stay, sometimes you have to move on, he explains. I like to be clear. I was a player once and used that experience. When you are honest with someone, they can take it. It is hard in the beginning but they will understand. I'm quite honest with my players and sometimes they know they have to move on at the end of the season. It's not about acting ruthless just to show strength, but when I feel something is going to harm the club, I am quite ruthless. I'm trying to make a balance. I see a clear path and I see it from the board also. They are doing difficult changes which aren't popular, but they are doing it because they have a vision. I knew the situation here taking the job. It was a risk, but we are surviving and doing everything. Today is really hard, I know, but this is going to help us in the future. I hope. We will see. By taking England under 19s defender Aidan Heaven and striker Chido Obi Martin from the Arsenal Academy, United are reaffirming their commitment to youth. Ideally, Amorim would also like to sprinkle some stardust to get United closer to their competitors. Nigerian striker Victor Osimhen, currently on loan to Galatasaray from Napoli, has been talked about. So too has PSG defender Nuno Mendes, as Amorim stays wedded to playing with wingbacks. He is United's youngest manager for more than half a century and concedes there is an element of learning on the job. We aren't winning enough games, so I don't feel like I am a better coach, he acknowledges. But I have lived here for 3 months and learned certain things. I am a more complete manager because sometimes you need to be in a poor situation to grow. I have felt during these 3 months I am not going to die if I lose 3 games in a row. I've learned to cope and maintain the energy.